our news hour debate tonight, we are going to be taking up once again the issue which is now being called opening up of a Pandora's box. But before that, yes, there is a growing demand for smaller states, no denying that. But here's the other side of the story on the news hour. Here are at least 4 key problems that smaller states face once they are formed.
Among many problems of smaller states is one of larger national parties holding greater sway in their matters. In 2008 Meghalaya elections, the Congress fought against its partners, but still emerged the single largest party, staking claim to form the government. As the entire opposition came together, the government fell 10 days later, just before the trust vote. Smaller states bring into the fray newer politicians, eager to grab their part of the pie. Madhu Koda, chosen as the Chief Minister of Jharkhand for being a non-controversial and new face, is currently ducking investigation from the Enforcement Directorate and IT Department. He has allegedly amassed 4,000 crore rupees. Rampant horse trading has plagued smaller states. Ever since Goa became a full-fledged state, it has seen 16 chief ministers in 22 years, with intermittent periods of the president's rule. Some chief ministers in the state have even seen multiple terms from different parties. Basic issues, often at the center of creation of smaller states, continue to bother them. Even after the states of Arunachal Pradesh, Nagaland, Mizoram and Meghalaya were carved out of Assam over issues of non-development, ULFA and NDFB are still locked in a vicious fight with the state, demanding further separation. Meanwhile, precious resources are used to fight wars and not for development. Bureau Report, Times Now.
Well, yesterday on the news hour, we raised a point on behalf of all our viewers. How many states will India be broken up into? Tonight we asked a more basic question. We are going even more basic tonight. When this decision on Telangana was made, was there enough thought given to it? Was there enough thought given of the ramifications of it? We spoke about opening Pandora's box yesterday. What are the ramifications? On a day when you actually have Chief Minister Mayawati come out and say, I want my state divided into Harit Pradesh, Bundelkhand and the rest of Uttar Pradesh, it's getting very serious indeed. With us in the studio this evening, Ravi Shankar Prasad of BJP, Dilip Padgaonkar of the Times Group, R.T. Jairath of DNA, thank you so much for coming, Jay Panda of the BJD, and joining us from his residence is Abhshek Manu Singhvi of the Congress Party. My first question naturally goes to the Congress Party tonight, because I think, Dr. Singhvi, you have a lot of explaining to do. Simply put, Prime Minister is saying one thing, Congress MPs from Andhra are saying one thing, Home Secretary is saying one thing and then correcting it about where who Hyderabad is going to go into. Were you prepared for the ramifications when your party and your government made the announcement?
Arnab, since you made me in the category of the principal accused, give sufficient time. I think the Congress stand has been the most consistent all along. We've said in writing from the CMP and before in 2004 that we will do this, we are for it, we are not against it, provided there is consensus. Now actually for the first time consensus emerged after the 2009 Andhra Pradesh parliamentary and assembly elections. Repeat, for the first time from all parties. After that consensus emerged, on the basis of the declarations by TDP, BJP and others, we have a couple of days ago made this announcement. Now thereafter, it is true, 2 things have happened. One, there is a unrest amongst MPs, and I use the word unrest in the sense that there is a natural problem in many MPs and MLAs' minds. But that is a phenomenon which cuts across party lines. Whether it is 130 MLAs or 120 MLAs or 50 of the Congress, 30 of the TDP, the only reason the BJP is on the list is because the BJP has no presence in Andhra. The point is, it's a legitimate concern which cuts across party lines.
Take a decision, why don't you stick with
each party, just 1 minute,
if you have
1 minute. Each party will work on their MPs and MLAs and say that this is a decision which we have to discuss with you and then ultimately it will translate into a consensus, is what we hope. As far as this Mayawati you've raised is concerned, it's very unbecoming of a constitutional post holder like a chief minister to make trivial comments, to fish in troubled waters, just to try to add fuel to the fire. She's just doing nothing, she's just playing around, and I think it backfires.
Abhshek, with absolute respect to you, sir, even Pallam Raju, who's a minister, is going ahead and contradicting a decision taken at the highest level by the cabinet, so inconsistency is there as well. Ravi Shankar Prasad.
No.
not scoring political. Would you admit national political parties have been non-serious in their attitude towards this creation of smaller states? You've deferred the issue, your government also deferred the issue. When you spoke about it, you speak about it with an assurance made in an impractical way with a lot of tags and traps. And now you're responding more in terms of, oh, we hope we don't get voted out in that area tomorrow.
I don't think that will be a fair comment to make. Or now, in a country like India, regional aspirations would be there. But what is important is how you handle it. You talked of our government. We created 3 states, Jharkhand out of Bihar, Uttarakhand out of UP, and thereafter Chhattisgarh out of Madhya Pradesh. You remember Lalu Prasad said Jharkhand mein last pe banega. But we had consultation, we had consensus, resolutions were passed. Now the fallout of these demands needs to be handled politically with the quality of governance. And my charge against the Congress party is that the way they have sought to handle it is the real problem because of which a lot of other implications are rising. Take the case of their own party. After all, first he goes for fast, then you don't handle it, or then you take KCR in government for 4 years into UPA 1. Therefore, the way the Congress party has...
So how is your position been different? On the floor of the House, Sushma Swaraj said that we were for Telangana, but we had to keep quiet because Chandrababu Naidu, our ally, wouldn't like it. She's on record having said that.
What, please, yes.
Point is, you also decided your position on the basis of your existing political convenience.
No, just a minute. As far as the Congress party is concerned, Congress party took KCR on board. He was also, Chandrasekhar was the minister in the Congress government for 4 years in UPA 1, 2004 to 2008. What I am simply saying is, today the Congress party is not sure of its own party. Take the case of Bihar, take the case of Madhya Pradesh. Many BJP people had a problem with Jharkhand and Chhattisgarh, but they accepted it.
But you expect national...
This is how you handle these situations.
The question is tonight that let me get a third point of view. Aarti, let me get you into this. You know, we are seeing a situation where national parties are competing with these smaller regional groupings to the point where we see national parties on the one side and behaving like sub-regional parties at the level of the smaller.
That will not be a fair comment as far as my party is
You are doing regionalism, sub-regionalism at a certain level.
Responding to regional aspirations is not cooperative politics. There is a way of handling it, that's all I have to say. Don't make that sweeping comment which you have just made.
Mr. Prasad, you are responding to regional aspirations, you know, when the trigger has been set off by KCR. I mean, that's the point. Aarti.
No, but you know, the point is, Arnab, there are very strong regional aspirations across India, okay? And if you look at the history of Telangana, the way, you know, politics has been handled in Andhra Pradesh, Telangana has been at the receiving end of, you know, all kinds of politics in Andhra Pradesh. It has been denied resources, it has been denied, you know, all the financial aid that has come from the center. In fact, the whole coastal belt has developed much more than Telangana has. So, you know, I mean, obviously, if these people want to be separate, they want to be independent.
Is this about development this time, or is it about local politics? The fact is, YSR held Andhra together. YSR
you know,
began breaking up the
There is a 50-year history to this demand for a separate Telangana state. And in fact, if you remember, in 1969, there was some 400 people were killed in Andhra Pradesh, in Telangana.
During Channa Reddy, completely.
That's right. And you have that, you know, sort of ignominy of seeing the chief minister having to escape from a window because, you know, the students were baying for his blood outside. So, you know, and the first state's reorganization committee actually warned against clubbing Telangana with Rayalaseema and, you know, and Andhra. And said and spelled it out very clearly, the kind of problems that would be created.
No, but question here was more in the context Jay Panda. The question here was when there is a weaker chief minister, which Rosaya is, he can't hold the state together as much. YSR convinced the Congress leadership that giving Telangana will be disastrous for the Congress party. After YSR, Rosaya hasn't been able to hold it together. Because of that, we are now seeing this national viral spreading. Local politics in Andhra Pradesh leading to a national viral of the demand of smaller states. That's the way one is looking at it. Is that a wrong way of looking at it? That this has more to do with politics than development?
Well, you know, in an earlier era of formation of states, there used to be a cultural basis for it. So you had linguistic basis for states. Then in later examples, as Ravi Shankar Prasad was pointing out, it was not linguistic but administrative units where states were too large. But then it was built with involvement of all stakeholders. It was not done by a fiat from the top, which I think brings into question the federal nature of our country.
Yes.
So we ought to ask ourselves, how far do you take this process forward? Do you then convert every district into a state and have 600 odd states
I think that's a valid question to ask.
in the country? So I think too large is obviously not viable, but is too small viable? I think the only answer is that you must have every stakeholder to have an active role in the decision-making process, which in this case seems to have been done.
Well, I know in this case the question is really that you cannot also put it on hold. I guess Mr. Padgaonkar, the government thought it could put the Telangana process on hold by having an announcement late in the night.
Well, if you take the genie out of the bottle, how do you put it back?
You're not going to be able to put it back. And hence the question is how many genies are going to come out, how many states will we be divided into?
And the fact of the matter is that for the past 15 odd years, we in the media who focus so much on personalities and events
Sure.
have not been analyzing trends. And the trends show that the federal arrangements in India have been changing, and changing in the following manner.
Sure.
The locus of power and the locus of authority have been shifting from the center to the state capitals, and from the state capitals further down to sub-regions.
Sure.
What has accelerated this process are economic reforms on the one hand,
Sure.
and the very democratic process on the other. People want
And also the media, television.
no, so
Sure.
I think this trend in our polity has been in the offing for all this while. What surprises me is that the national political parties, like the media, I'm afraid, have not been anticipating that this thing would happen. You require this fast and this twists and turns, the topsy-turvy manner in which this is handled. I think we've just got to once again take a hard look at not, we are getting away, let us say, from...
No, but then we have to be sure. I mean, okay, even if I were to concede your point, the point where one would
First of
disagree
all, I
would
don't
be-
agree with you that you call it a national viral. I don't think this medical thing is appropriate because there are legitimate concerns.
Certainly, but then one has to be sure, doesn't one? What is the basis of the creation of new states? Abhishek Manu Singhvi, for example, I want his reaction because we are all talking development. Each one of you is saying for development, let's have small states. What is the demand for the Gorkha land? Is it because of development issues, Abhishek Manu Singhvi? Or do they want to go separate ways because of ethnic differences with the peoples in the hills as opposed to peoples in the plains? And then, on that basis, how can we say no to them, saying, oh, yours is on the basis of ethnic divide. Somebody else is on the basis of development, and hence, sorry, we'll give you a state, but we won't give you a state. Can we do that?
Two or three points, Arnab. Firstly, I think you should not belittle regionalism or regional parties because somebody said very tellingly that although we started off India as a centrist or a quasi-federal constitution, much more centrist and unitary and much less federal, over the years several diluting factors have brought in unintended federalism in India, and that's a good thing. Regional parties, language, fiscal federalism, economic reform, etc. has all made a theoretically centrist unitary constitutional model into a much more factually de facto operable decentralized model, much more federal model, and that's, I think, a good thing. Number two, I think we all have to show a certain amount of statesmanship because, I want to single out the TDP and the BJP. They were the main parties whose consensus was required, which was meant in our declaration in the CMP. They came on board some time ago. On that basis, we made a declaration 2 days ago, and within 2 days, I find discordant voices from the TDP and the BJP. This is nothing but opportunism merely because they are not in the saddle there. Having in a sense said, yes, we are all for Telangana, and in a sense the Congress having called their bluff. Today, there is backtracking by both of them. Third point is your question about the lines or the parameter or the criterion to divide states.
You can, sure, please, direct
only one second.
Yeah, go ahead.
Manu just talked
Only
about
one second.
statesmanship.
I think the thing about division, ultimately,
from day one, and we have firmly conveyed to the government, our public position is too well known. I will not fall into his trap, but now I will lift the debate to a different level. I am from Bihar, my good friend Jayant is from Odisha. Both of us were part of Bengal at one point in time. First Bihar was created and Odisha was created. Therefore, don't belittle, as Dilip rightly pointed out, regional aspirations.
So are you for a Bhojpur state?
Just a minute.
No, are you for a Bhojpur state?
Just a minute.
There is a demand for
No, what I'm simply telling you, what is important is there has to be a regional model, there has to be a developmental model, there has to be a variety of other reasons. What is more important is how does the polity
Sir.
and how does the party in power handle
But
it?
can we not be theoretical and be specific? Are you for the creation, bifurcation of Bihar existing
with time-
into Bhojpur and Bihar?
Sitting with times now with Arnab
Are
Goswami,
you-
I cannot predict
No,
10 divisions of Assam.
are you-
Don't make those assumptions, I'm sorry.
Are you for...
Let's have a serious
No,
debate
I'm
about
having
it.
a specific debate.
Don't be so blunt, reply like this
no, no.
or reply like that.
No.
That is not a fair way of handling
No, but-
a
no,
situation.
but-
Sorry,
but-
Mr.
no,
Prasad.
Arnab,
It's not fair.
Arnab,
It's not
Mr.
fair.
Prasad.
No, and I
No.
think Ravi Shankar has a point, because I don't think that everybody is demanding a separate state or every district.
Well,
is
there are
demanding-
12
Only because
pending
Arnab Goswami is articulating
a lot of the
demand. It's not a fair
a lot of the demands are really spurious and quite opportunistic. As far as Telangana is concerned, there is a history to it, and you cannot compare it to, say,
No,
some,
but Aarti,
you know,
And
some
it is
demands
equally
of
your
Bhojpur.
responsibility,
But
Arnab
Aarti,
Goswami.
no, but-
Sorry.
but let me ask you-
As the best channel of the country, as you claim,
No,
it is equally your
Aarti,
responsibility to behave this way.
I am
Take this
asking a
issue
question
in a
to you.
responsible manner.
I am asking a question
Not
to
be
you.
very provocative.
I am asking
That's very important.
I am asking a question to you in a very specific manner and in a responsible manner. Question is, what is legitimate is what is illegitimate.
The political process will decide it.
You see,
The political process will decide
The
it.
political process for somebody in Karbi will say, if you are looking at Gorkhaland on the basis of an ethnic divide, then I will look at a Karbi state
I have
on
a
the basis of
problem
an
that
ethnic
you are
divide.
giving a hint in the studio.
It is a,
For people in Karbi to rise.
No, it is an
It is fair.
these are existing demands, sir. These are
This is not.
Where, that's where I ask, where will you draw the line? Jay, is this an unfair question to ask today?
Hang on.
Where and when will you draw the line? I mean, let's not push
You
it
know-
to the media.
you know,
These are
if you-
existing demands. Yeah.
If you go back a little bit more than half a century ago,
Yep.
the linguistic basis for creation of states was viciously opposed by many important people in the country. And it was predicted that that would be the end of the country, but it wasn't. Now, the real problem I think this time around is that some parties, and I'm not going to point my fingers at anyone specifically.
direct, Jay.
No, some parties want to hunt with the hounds as well as run with the hares.
Name the parties, let them respond.
And that's where the problem arises.
No, you're talking about both the BJP and the Congress.
I'm not
or
going
one
to,
of them.
I'm not
Or
going
you're
to name
talking
either
about
of the
national
parties. I'm not going to name any party, but I think what happens is, obviously, demands arise from an area. In this case, it is a developmental demand. It is not an ethnic demand. In the case of Telangana.
Yes, it is. It is.
And
You're right, absolutely right.
there are many parts of the country which can have a legitimate claim that they have been neglected.
Yes.
But there are other answers. The answer is not to keep chopping up all the time. And I think at least the national parties have a responsibility to look at alternative ways of bringing development to these areas if the
Have
unit
we
of
looked at
administration
them?
is not too
So
large.
have we looked at them? Have we looked at them? That's the question. You know, why are regional imbalances created? Mr. Padgaonkar, legitimate point you raised there. Regional imbalances are also created because chief ministers don't provide funds to development boards. You can create development boards, regional development boards, transfer funds to them, give more powers to them. You don't want to give that because it will undermine your own authority. That creates regional imbalances. I mean, if that had been done in Telangana, maybe this whole festering feeling that we've been left behind wouldn't have existed. So have we tackled the real problem?
But listen, the festering feeling is on two counts.
Yes.
First of all, there are issues of identity which have to be addressed. I mean, Bodo land is a prime example. All right. But I think overriding these issues of identity is the question of development. And development itself has acquired a different accent in the past few years.
Sure.
People no longer want to trust promises.
Sure.
They want performance.
Sure.
And the performance is always at the grassroots level.
Yeah.
You cannot, some joint secretary sitting in Mumbai and trying to determine what's going to happen in a district in Vidarbha is no longer going to matter. You will need to take another look at the federal arrangement, come up with certain criteria on which you develop a consensus. What happens is, please go back to the terrible violence that took place with the creation of Maharashtra.
Yeah.
Everyone knew that the Maharashtra Samiti was building up a thing. But people didn't anticipate it.
They did.
Political parties did not anticipate it. The same thing has happened to Andhra. She is right. For 50 years this demand has been going on.
Yep.
But you never seriously address those
No, but
demands.
today can either the BJP or the... Yes, Jay, okay, quick.
I think the developmental angle needs to be treated different from the ethnic angle. And for example, in Odisha, when Naveen Patnaik became chief minister, we inherited an issue that parts of western Odisha felt that they were being neglected.
Sure.
So as a regional party, the onus was on us, and the steps were taken to set up a specific developmental board.
Yeah.
And a large part of the investments coming into Odisha were directed to western Odisha. Infrastructure like bridges and roads were given high priority in that area.
Yeah.
That's the way to tackle some
No,
of
but
these
Jay,
issues.
at the same time, political parties are flip-flop.
Here
No,
I would like
no.
to just add one thing, Arna, if you permit me. When you take up an issue of a new state or addressing the regional concerns, you will have to keep your political interest primarily separately. For instance,
How it's possible to do
yes,
that?
it is possible.
No, can you,
Take the case of when Uttarakhand was created, when Chhattisgarh was created, we were in power in Delhi,
Yes, you
and
were.
both the places Congress government came into power. Ajit Jogi here, Narendra Tiwari in Uttarakhand.
Yes.
Now we could have stonewalled it because the BJP is not going to come to power. Ultimately, people brought us back through the ballot paper. Therefore, it is very important. When you take up these matters, you have to be a little statesman type. What I see the problem is Telangana, where I am with Aarti and Dilip completely, that Telangana has a regional aspiration going for the last more than 50 years. But the way the Congress party, which has been the principal force in both the regions in Andhra Pradesh, has handled it.
But then
and
there
is
was a
handling it now,
process. No, there was
is
a
the real
process.
problem.
There was a
And
process.
the process
The
is-
difference between what you mentioned Uttaranchal, because you mentioned Uttaranchal, is totally different, Mr. Ravi Shankar Prasad. For the
I
principal
must
reason,
clarify the
for the principal reason that, as you are aware, the Uttar Pradesh Assembly thrice passed a resolution. It went through process. Three times passed a resolution. First in 90 when you were in power. Then in 94 when SP was in power. Third in 97.
I was just going to say that.
So, there was a process. Where's the process in
Take the case
Telangana?
of Bihar Assembly. Lalu Prasad was dead against it.
Yeah.
We counseled him, we persuaded him. Here Congress party is in majority in Andhra Pradesh. Let ask Abhishek Manu Singhvi, why hasn't Congress party passed a resolution?
We
If
are-
the Congress party is so clear about it.
But because they're against the resolution. I mean today.
But they're having a majority, I suppose.
No, they have a thin majority. You would lose the majority today if you were to try and pass a resolution. State
Consensus building has not been
State
there.
political-
Management of political affairs by Congress party in this case, I would say,
Yeah.
is not very clear because the Congress party's intentions are such.
You're making it political. I am not, Mr. Prasad. But let Ravi Shankar, let Abhishek Manu Singhvi respond to that accusation from Ravi Shankar Prasad directly tonight. Yes, sir.
While professing repeatedly not to make it political, my friend Ravi always makes it political. So let me give you a political answer. First of all, the BJP has no presence in Andhra, so he can afford to be gratuitous about it and a little casual about Andhra. It has absolutely no presence. But assume the BJP had a presence. Do you think when the TDP has at least 30, 40 MLAs rising up against it, the BJP would be very different? And that's the problem with the Congress as well. We have differing views. How do you manage it? It's very easy
That
to
is an
say. There's no
assumption.
political management. That's the, number two. All the other states, not only Uttarakhand, you will find that a large number of cases, the assemblies have passed resolutions. In this case, I'll tell you a very simple and important reason why we did not pass a resolution in Andhra. It's because we have been of the stated written view. Unlike the BJP, we did not whisper this for 6 long years. Unlike the TDP, which did a volte-face, we had a written stand that we want consensus, take it or leave it, that's our stand. And we wanted consensus because ultimately, during coalition politics in the center, it has to come through a constitutional amendment in the center. Where you get a two-thirds, where you get a two-thirds, unless you generate a consensus.
You're twisting it, Dr. Singhvi. This common minimum program, you're twisting it. Common minimum program said you are committed to Telangana. Now you are saying we will seek a
Yes.
consensus so that the blame of
Read the
can be
common, no,
shared
just read.
among all. So
I'm
it's
sorry.
political. Just bring.
Arnab, 1 minute. Arnab,
No.
Arnab, you're wrong. Please pick up the common minimum program. I am quoting from the common minimum program. We are all for Telangana. We are committed to Telangana, but it can be done only by consensus. Please pick it up and read it. That's where the consensus comes from in that CMP.
You
And
can't
number
make a
two,
promise in a way
the
with
consensus
several
is
tags and
important.
traps. You 2004,
Without a resolution in the Vidhan Sabha.
2004 common minimum program said appropriate time after due consultations and consensus. Now, if you're saying that means whenever, then obviously, you're going to stoke the fires. And some KCR will come and say,
I
I'll go
also
fast.
would like to
Yeah, go
point
ahead, yeah.
out that after the recent assembly elections in Andhra Pradesh,
Yes.
I think why Rajshekhar Reddy, mocked Chandrasekhar Rao
Yeah.
and said that this election result has decisively, settled the question of the
Yeah.
separate demand for Telangana. It's not on. I mean, he made it very clear. That was his main plank. So I don't know how he's saying that the Congress party was for the creation of Telangana.
Last question tonight. I ask you, Jay Panda and then Dilip Patrao to close the debate. It is political, isn't it? Why are we shying away from the fact? When Mayawati stands and has a press conference saying, I am for Harit Pradesh and I am for Bundelkhand, it's unstoppable. The Congress and the BJP have no choice but to follow her. So it's become, this yielding space following these parties. Hence, there's no diversity of approach.
Do you want me to reply to it?
I want you to reply certainly. Certainly, but you're looking very ominous, but I'll get Jay Panda to reply and then I'm coming back to you. Yes.
Looking ominous?
Certainly.
You know, regional aspirations of course are genuine,
Yeah.
and of course have to be given due respect. But regionalism doesn't mean constantly chopping administrative units into ever smaller pieces. I give you an example of how Naveen Patnaik has handled Odisha's situation. I think it is incumbent on both regional parties that don't want a splitting of the state and national parties to have provided an alternate vision. I don't think an alternate vision of bringing development without splitting has been provided.
But it's not, that's the point. It's
You
not been
allow
provided.
something to fester for years without providing any alternates. What do you expect but it to blow up when the sudden vacuum exists?
Dilip Aggaonkar, you agree with that view?
I agree with that view, but I think, missing from this entire debate is something which we can only speculate about, which is please also follow the money trail.
Money trail?
The money trail are the massive investments that have gone into Hyderabad. Who are the people owning those huge real estates in that city? They are afraid of what's going to happen to the realty market.
Absolutely.
I think the money trail needs to be followed as much as the political calculations that you speak of.
Absolutely. Well, you wanted to quickly respond.
I only want to say, Arnav, why you are so having a problem with something political process? On political demand, just a minute. In a democracy like India, a huge democracy, these demands would come about.
Absolutely.
But what is more important is maturity of the political process to respond to these problems in a constructive way and find a solution. We cannot chop a state, as Jay rightly pointed out, at the top of a hat. But what is more important is address the regional aspirations.
Sure.
Over a period of time,
Yeah.
the festering wounds.
Yeah.
And I think the democratic polity will have to find an answer to it in a constructive way.
Ravi Shankar Prasad, and to all my guests, Abhishek Manu Singhvi, Jay Panda, Aarti Jarath, Dilip Aggaonkar, thanks very much. On the other side, Anil Kapoor is making his much awaited international debut on a very popular global TV series. He's talking to us after the break.